everyone, I'm Brittany Jones-Cooper, and welcome back to Build. Season 2 of 13 Reasons Why picks up during the aftermath of Hannah's death as Liberty High goes on trial and her friends struggle to heal and recover. Today we'll be joined by Tommy Dorfman, who plays Ryan Shaver, the smart and witty editor of the school's newspaper. But before we bring out Tommy, let's check out a clip from the show.
It felt like this whole thing was going to be over. But it's not.
How far does the dark go?
What are you gonna do about that?
How far does the dark go? How far does the dark go?
You don't know what was happening in this photo. And you don't know what happened after.
We're all in this together now.
Don't you know about what goes on at this school?
This is proof of who they all are.
The truth doesn't always make things right.
It's going to keep happening. It doesn't stop.
There is nothing left worth having except justice for our daughter.
The coast is clear. What can I see? If the stakes are low, then why does it seem I'm losing everything? Stare down the fear like a loaded gun.
I can't count on anyone else anymore. I have to do this myself. You don't. No one's going to get justice for her.
How far does the dark go?
Guys, give it up for Tommy Dorfman. We were watching that trailer and we're like, yeah, that's just how high school was for me too.
100%.
Super dramatic, all that drama. So season 2 of the show
Yes.
debuted on May 18th. What has the feedback been like for you?
I mean, I think it's been super positive. Like, we had a great existing fan base, people who really resonated with the show and, you know, obviously found it very meaningful to them. And I think season 2 carried that on. And it seems that people are really excited about it.
Right. So for somebody who's never seen the show, what's sort of the breakdown kind of coming into season 2? Like, how would you describe
Okay,
season
so
2?
yeah, we leave season 1. You've sort of learned about these tapes. You know what's on these tapes. You know what everyone did to Hannah Baker. Season 2, we pick up, and there's a trial. And the entire season, you're following each character who was on the tape, their testimony in this trial. The trial is against the Baker family and the school, trying to hold the school accountable for, you know, the bullying that took place and essentially the suicide of Hannah Baker. Yeah.
And there is so much drama in season 2. I feel like they really just heightened
They
it.
really amped it up.
Yeah, so I mean, the show tackles so many different issues, from suicide to gun violence to sexual assault, rape specifically. What's it like for you to be a part of a show that really kind of goes after these topics really affecting teens and young adults?
I think for me, you know, what was so important about our show and being a part of it and, you know, getting that amazing opportunity is that, you know, for once we were telling the truth. For once we had a show that was brutally honest and painful and funny and authentic to what the high school experience really is for some people. And so for me to be part of that truth-telling and part of that moment is such a gift.
How do you feel about the controversy surrounding some of the issues that are tackled in the show, specifically rape? I know this season a lot of people, there's a specific episode,
Yes.
and you know, if you Google it, that's what a lot of people are sort of up in arms about, although some people also think it's good to show that. What do you think about that controversy?
You know, I think for me, like, since day one on this show, like, we're here to tell stories. And these stories might be different than other people's experiences, but I've found if you focus less on the details of what's happening and more on the emotional journey, you can find ways to relate. And I think that's what a lot of our fan base has done. And I know me in particular, I've had that experience with this show. That scene in particular is, of course, can be very triggering and is really difficult to watch. But, you know, it's important to note that rape victims come in different sizes and shapes and genders, and it's not always a girl who's getting assaulted. Sometimes it is a guy, and I think for us it was important to share that story and to share Tyler's story. Yeah.
I think it also just opens up a whole new conversation. Like you said, we have this idea of what a rape victim looks like, and the show really pushed against that stereotype.
Yeah.
And then I love that online there's resources available for people if
course.
they're going through something, which is something I think they really are pushing more season 2.
Yeah, I think we learned from season 1 that maybe we weren't, even though we had the resources available, we weren't marketing them as best as we could. And so coming into or at least from season 1, but coming into season 2, it was extremely important to have places for people to go who were feeling triggered, who, watching the content felt like they needed to talk to somebody, and maybe they didn't feel comfortable talking to their parents or a counselor or a friend, and they wanted more professional help. Yeah.
You play Ryan,
I do.
who I think is this just sophisticated, and I really like his style. His confidence is something
Yeah.
I wish I would have had at that age.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm so grateful I got to play this role for 2 seasons because, in my high school experience was not like this at all. I was not that confident. I was not that well-spoken. I wasn't that sure of myself. And obviously, for Ryan, that can be a detriment. But I think, especially in season 2, it's more of a positive. You see some growth from him. You see him learning how to maybe not be as mean or as challenging or as confrontational. And he's a bit more friendly. And he's definitely growing in that way.
I was going to ask what is sort of I don't like giving away spoilers because I know we
right.
all haven't finished season 2. But for Ryan in season 2, I know he definitely sort of, like you said, he deals with things in a different way where I feel like he wants to be a little more honest about what really happened. So what do you think plays into that for him? Like, why was that important for him to sort of stand up a little bit?
I think having that time away from what happened with Hannah and the time to reflect on that, and also spending time with Miss Baker, he's learning that maybe he wasn't in the right. Maybe he was in the wrong, and maybe the way he was treating people or exposing people, and even with, Courtney in season 1 outing her publicly in different ways and bullying her because she wasn't ready to come out of the closet. But in season 2, they developed this, you don't see a lot of it, but you can see that they have a friendship now, they have a kinship, they're there for each other. And I think a lot of that just ties into that sort of personal growth that you have when you've taken some time away from the drama of the situation and you have an opportunity to reflect on it.
Absolutely. And as we're watching the show, we really only get to watch Clay, who's the protagonist, listen to these tapes and soak in all the information. We don't really get that for the other characters. So for Ryan, what do you imagine his experience was like listening to those tapes in the first season?
I had this idea kind of going into season 1. I was like, he didn't listen to them. He just passed it on and completely neglected. But I think the truth is he did. And I think, he didn't do it as slowly as Clay. My sort of backstory that I created was that he did it in one sitting. And more from an objective place, which I think you see because he kind of, in season 1, he's like, yeah, Bryce is a rapist. This is what happened. This is what you guys did. And I know what I did was shitty, but it wasn't nearly as bad. And he has some sort of oddly mature perspective on it. Not that he always carries himself that way, but I do imagine he saw it as most things for Ryan, more analytically than emotionally. That's just kind of the type of person that he is.
And what was I going to say? This is your first role, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
What has that experience like? Because you kind of went from 0 to 60.
Yeah, to 100. I mean, for me, it's educational. I sort of look at my work in that way. I went to college in New York. I went to Fordham. I graduated in, the spring of 2015. And, less than a year later, I was on set shooting the show. And for me, I'd never been on a set before. So, more than anything, it was that. It was what is a camera? What is a director? What is an assistant director? What do these people do in film and TV that they do differently than in theater? Which is a lot of things. So I had that, and then, kind of felt like summer camp season 1, and we'd forgotten that we'd made this thing, and we weren't sure anyone was going to like it. We didn't think anyone was really going to watch it. We had no idea the amount of impact it would have and the effect that it would have culturally and globally, not just in America, but around the world. And yeah, I've learned from all of those experiences. And then again, to have now a fan base and people coming to me and talking to me about what they relate to in the show. I've learned to be a good listener. I've learned to be kind. Not that I wasn't, not that I wasn't kind before, but I think even more so now to really hear people out because everyone has a story and the show affects people in different ways. So yeah, it's really, I can't imagine a better first job. It's provided so much experience for me and an amazing platform and an amazing group of people I get to work with and like a whole new chosen family in this cast and creators.
And how did you get tapped to be a part of the cast? And did you originally audition for Ryan, or did you audition
No,
for
you know, I
somebody
think
else?
everyone auditioned for Clay and Hannah.
Okay.
Even if we weren't right. I mean, clearly. But everyone auditioned for Clay and Hannah, and then, you know, they auditioned thousands of people, obviously, because, like, I had done nothing and they saw me. But I had a friend who was auditioning who had the script, who's a little bit further ahead in their career at that time. And he shared the script with me and was like, look, I think you should go in for this if you can. I didn't really have agents at the time. I like kind of had a manager. I thought I was just gonna be doing like community theater or like weird stuff like in downtown or in Bushwick. And, but I read the script and I was like, oh wow, I really love this. And I loved the role of Clay. I was like, there is a version of this that like I could do. It's probably not what they're looking for. So I took a class with like the casting associate. He just happened to be teaching at like a weird place where like actors pay to take classes with casting associates and just like pray that you get called in. So I'd like taken a class with him and reached out to my like basically non-existent agents. And I was like, can I please audition for this? And they fought and got me in. And then I had like 4 other auditions in the course of a couple months. And I flew to LA and did a chemistry read with Christian Navarro. And there was all these like gaps in between of, is this gonna happen? Is this not happening? I had like no expectations. I was like, there's no way this is gonna happen. And then after my chemistry read, 3 weeks went by and I was just committed to this not happening. And then I was like in New Hampshire with my parents. And like right when I drove there from New York, I got the call and I was like, oh shit. And the next day I was on a plane and that's it.
So how have you acclimated to this newfound fame? Is it overwhelming?
I can't. The word fame is so weird. Yeah, I don't think. I think it's overwhelming in some sense. I am more self-conscious now than I used to be, you know, and I've had to battle with that. But at the same time, I'm more just aware of, you know, where I am and whether it's just like in my day-to-day life or if I'm going to an event or traveling in the airport. All of those things feel a little bit more heightened, but nothing's really changed. I guess, you know, for me, like, it's about the work and it's about doing the work and continuing to do the work, you know, on 13 and other projects and in my own stuff at home.
So you grew up in Atlanta?
I did, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what was high school like for you? You're playing this high school student. What was it like for you? And did you identify with any of the characters? Like, which one is most maybe like you back in high school?
Yeah. High school for me, I went to a really small, weird school in Atlanta. We didn't have football. We didn't have baseball. Like, our biggest sport was ultimate frisbee. If you haven't heard of that, that's fine. I still don't know what it is. And I was like a theater dork. Yeah. You know, like I found my people in doing musical theater at school. Don't ask me to sing. And, you know, I was also getting into a lot of trouble in high school. I came out at kind of an early age and there was some conflict with that. And I was going out, I was drinking a lot and I was partying a lot. And I kind of related to, and I did have my own experiences with, you know, sexual assault and putting myself in places that I wasn't necessarily meant to be at that age and exposing myself to a lot at an early age. And so I do think, you know, in season 1, I definitely related to Jessica's storyline of like, after a terrible thing happened to me, I took to, you know, alcohol and drugs as recovery at that time. Like that was sort of like my safe space. And then, you know, I've grown from that now and I've found other outside resources for help that aren't destroy my body, but you know, I definitely relate to that experience of like, how do I do this? And I can't talk to anyone about it. I don't feel comfortable talking to my parents about it. I don't feel comfortable talking to kids at school about it. And yeah, I mean, that was it. I got picked on, but I didn't really care either at that. You know, it was like, I had a little bit of that like Ryan, like nonchalant thing, but I was a lot less present. And I wasn't super academic. I wasn't very committed to my studies. So that was another fun thing about playing this character, because he's someone who's like clearly ready to go. You know, he's like, I'm going to an Ivy League, I'm done, get me out of here, ASAP. And for me, it was like, the only way I got into college was acting. I wasn't even sure if I was gonna be an actor. It was just like my way to get into school. And I felt a lot of pressure because all my friends were going to these like really high profile schools and I was like, I didn't get into almost anywhere.
That's why I think the show is so good. We each have a story that sort of relates to something. And even though I'm older now, I can still watch the show and be like, well, yeah, I know somebody who went through that, or I went through that. And that's where it's very universal. And you mentioned you came out at a very young age. It's Pride Month. I know you're an advocate for the LGBT community. You're constantly speaking out. And for you being an openly gay actor, I read something that you're like, you know, I wanted to just do this from the beginning, you know, and just be who I was. So how important was that for you?
You know, I think like politically, this country was in a weird place when the show came out. We had a new administration that, to me, was ignoring the LGBTQ community entirely, and beyond not supportive. So when the show was about to come out, I took a minute. I was like, more than a minute. I took some time with my team and sort of thought through all those pieces and what that would look like in the long run. But for me, I didn't feel like I had a choice. I felt like, you know, if I was gonna get 10,000 followers, if I was gonna get 15,000 followers, if, you know, a couple people watch this show, at least they would know that there's like one person out there who's young and doing this and comfortable with themselves. And it's not always easy, but I think it is sort of integral to my being. And I don't think I would be able to do the work that I do without being out of the closet in that sense. And that's just my experience. And of course, it creates conflict within my industry and otherwise, but none of that can take away from the amount of like pleasure I get and compassion I get out of being my true self authentically, publicly.
And I would imagine your fans love that.
I think so.
That you're so open and honest about who you are and that you don't feel like you need to fit inside a certain box in Hollywood to get certain roles.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope I hope that, you know, the work that I do, whether it provides me with the most amount of opportunities I should be provided with based on, you know, my skill level and my commitment to my craft. You know, I might not get all those opportunities, but I'm hoping for the next generation that they have an easier time. You know, I think about that a lot in the work that I do, and when I get told no because of, you know, my gender identity or because of my sexuality, I think, you know, I fight against those no's on a daily basis. And sometimes I win those fights, and like that feels really great. Doesn't always mean I get the job, but it just means I got a little bit further and a little bit further. And I think if I continue to commit to that, yeah, people will continue to resonate with that. And, you know, hopefully in 10 years, we won't just have queer films and queer roles. Everything will feel more like a melting pot, and more true to, you know, what our life is. More integrated.
I think you'll have a long career ahead of you, so I'm excited to
hope
see
so.
where that goes. And I know you model as well, and I love your clothes.
Thank you.
Like everything I've seen you in, I was doing some Googling. I was like, God, your style is impeccable.
That's very
so
sweet.
is that something that you're really passionate about? Is that something you want to keep moving forward with, like kind of being a fashion icon a little bit?
Whoa. I think fashion for me has always been a form of expression. You know, like I wore girls' clothes when I was a kid, and it wasn't necessarily because I felt like a girl. It was just because like I preferred bell bottoms and like tank tops, and I wanted to look like a Spice Girl. And
Didn't we all?
Didn't we all? I mean,
Yes.
come on. And I luckily had parents who, like, even when I would come home crying, bruised from the day, would support me the next day when I wanted to continue wearing what I wanted to wear. And I kind of take that with me now. It is important. You know, I don't know if I'm not a model in the sense that like I wasn't a model before I was an actor. I wasn't doing that. Like any kind of, I guess, modeling I've done has been associated with my acting. But yeah, I love fashion. I love collaborating with different designers and picking out things to wear. I think it's really fun. It's a different sort. It's like it's very much like a hobby of mine that I've gotten to take with me professionally.
Yeah, you
I'm
guys should
grateful
follow
for
him
that.
on Instagram if you don't. 'Cause I love it. So I think now would be a good time to go to some audience
Sure.
questions.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, hi, good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So you studied theater arts, but you're doing TV, and I don't know if you've done film yet, but do you want to do stage or Broadway at some point in your career?
100%, yeah. Like, I think that is where my soul is. I love TV and film. You know, as a writer, I actually like, only write screenplays. Like, I can't. That's just like the way my brain works, and that's how I remember seeing the world as a kid too. I would see everything like it was being filmed, like it was a movie, and I observe life in that way and take from that and put it into my characters and put it into my work. But there's nothing quite like the feeling of doing something live and it changing and being unpredictable. You know, I saw Angels in America right when I landed here on Saturday, and that like. I still haven't stopped thinking about that and my like need and desire to experience that on a level that's maybe slightly larger than doing a school play. But yeah, 100%, I will go back to theater if the opportunity comes.
Is there a dream role in theater?
Oh yeah, I mean, Prior in Angels America is definitely my dream role and has been like since I read that play in high school. And Andrew Garfield did an amazing job, and I feel like 10 years from now I'll hopefully have the opportunity to play that role. Yeah.
I mean, it could be sooner than 10 years. I don't know.
It could be sooner
Yeah,
than 10
why
years.
not?
That's true. Why not?
Why not?
Who knows?
One more question?
Since it is Pride Month, do you have any plans for Pride?
I do. I will be back in New York. I live in LA right now. I'll be back in New York for Pride on a float. I think, which I've never done. So I'll be here, with ASOS and GLAAD.
What kind of float, do you know or no?
I don't know what the float looks like, but I was the face of the ASOS GLAAD collab last year, and we had like a very small sort of capsule collection. It's a lot bigger this year, and we just shot that campaign, and so I think we're doing the whole launch at Pride, sort of that week. So it's like really cool clothes, a really amazing group of people, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm
It's
excited.
really fun.
I haven't gotten to really participate in Pride in that way. Brandon and I were in Paris last summer for Pride by accident, and that was like the best accident ever. Yeah, it was amazing. But yeah.
Thank you. And one last question before we go.
We're going to take our last question from an online viewer.
Oh, cool. Hi,
Cassie would
online
like to know
viewer.
If the show does get picked up for a third season, where would you like to take your character?
You know, it's an interesting thing. Yeah, like the season 2 was the end of the spring semester of my character's senior year. So I don't know. I talk about studying abroad, and it'd be cool if we got to see that. I don't know if we will have the opportunity to see that. We still don't know if we have a season 3 or what the plan is that way.
Well, season 3 we're not sure about, but season 2 is currently available on Netflix.
Yes,
so make
it
sure you guys go
is.
check that out and give it up for Tommy.
Thank you.